Yes. 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 Well, thank you for that introduction. Now I have to live up to it. Um, well, let's get started then. Since
thank you
last
for that
week,
introduction.
we picked back up
Now I have
here
to live up to
with
it.
Kavan and his two
Well, let's get started then.
teammates who have just
Since-
delved straight into the Sunless Citadel. Maybe not quite sure what they're getting themselves into, but knowing that there are bounties to be collected and treasures to be discovered. Picking up back here underneath the tower, I think the three of you, having spent about 5 minutes in this room, um, are suddenly you are very much steeped now in the dark and dank dungeon tile floor here. Looking above you, I think you see the collapsed tower that hangs above, casting this kind of like purplish glow. As you look off into the corners, you see this purplish fungus that seems to light the area in a purple glow. Um, well, to pick up where we left off, Dorian Flagstone looks to the northwest, sensing your intentions to move through, and he says, "We've been adventuring for a little bit. What say you, I take the lead here?" There should be, and it should be at the bottom right of the map, if you're unable to currently see anything. I've set it up so that each character should have dynamic lighting engaged. And also I've set it up so that places you've been to will be actually lit up a little bit based on where you've been. So Dorian nods, accepts, and begins to move forward. He moves to the door, finds it is unlocked, gives a look to you two, Sheldon and Kavan, and opens the door. Without wasting much time, he walks into the hallway and looks back out and gives you the thumbs up. A hallway. I see a bit of light ahead, he says. You see the same glowing at the end of the hallway. There seems to be a source of warm light casting itself through the bottom of a door slit at the very far right or far left of this hallway. To the north and south, though, you also see doors towards the end. Sure. Go ahead and give me a stealth check. See how well you move through this space. In the meantime, Sheldon and Dorian, sensing that their heavy armor might give off their location, they hang back for a bit, staying right by the wall towards the entrance of this room. They see your gestures, your indication of wanting to move stealthily, and it seems by the time you get to the far left, you are able to stealthily move across this room, hushing your footsteps with the soft pitter patter of boot on stone tile. You do not hear anything sense your presence. There are no lights coming from the north and south doors. To the south, though, you hear this steaming sound. It sounds as if water in various liquid and gaseous forms are flowing through pipes, and it sounds like. To the left, you can just barely see that sliver of light cut through the very bottom of the door slat, and you think you can hear something, and like it sounds like muttering, and probably would sound like. You do so with your gesture. Sheldon and Dorian move very slowly, almost maybe just crawling at an inch pace towards the west door. By the time they get to the door to the north, it has already been maybe 30 seconds or a minute. Dorian looks in your direction and he whispers, "What do you hear? There's something up ahead." Hearing this, Sheldon takes his own initiative, moving towards the southern door. As he crosses the gap of the hallway to the other side, he presses himself against the southern wall and leans his head towards the door. As he makes a motion as if he's heard something, he looks to you and he says, "I've heard something in here. Coming. That must be it. What do you suppose is beyond this southern door?" Sheldon nods and he makes to the door as if attempting to open it, and he kind of gives you that look as if he should try the door or not. Dorian can be seen readying his weapon on the far side of the hallway, or on the northern side of the hallway. Sheldon makes his way to the southern door, and he takes it, and he makes a. It is locked. Sheldon looks back up to you, as if indicating if he should press the situation. Sheldon steps back, draws a weapon, and he kind of notions to you, nods towards you, motions towards you, and says, these hands, they are old and brittle. If you wouldn't mind. And he asks if you'd be willing to try to attempt to unlock this door. I think you maybe mentioned that, and Sheldon, sensing that this door might require a set of thieves' tools to break in, sort of drops the subject, and he kind of goes through his pack, ruffling through it with, I don't have anything for this kind of door. Perhaps the next time we come down here, we bring thieves. Dorian once again, looking and hearing the mentions of a thief or a rogue, says, "Oh," and he manages to take out a set of thieves' tools. However, he does not look exactly well equipped, or the type of person to necessarily to break open doors. Or I should say this: he looks like he could knock down a door, but not in the way that fits a thief. And as he takes out the thieves' kit, you can see he has uh, a full set of lockpicks. And he says, well, I could try my hand at it. It's been a while. Dorian, I'm going to say this. Dorian needs to make a check. Convince you either way. Unconvincingly, he says, of course. It's just been a while since I've done it. I usually break down doors. And he makes his way over to the door as if to prove a point, kind of squaring his shoulders against this door. He takes out his thieves' toolkit and attempts to lockpick the door. Um, is that enough? He starts taking time to put in a lockpick and also start manipulating the tumbler within. With a careful few ding, 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 the door unlocks. Uh, Dorian himself looks somewhat surprised, and he says, "See, easy as pie." Picks up his toolkit and stashes it away. He nods to Sheldon to his left, and you to his right, and opens the door. And the door makes this. And inside, you're able to see a large barrel. The sound now fills the hallway, making this. Sure. Go ahead and give me a perception check. This thing doesn't seem super familiar, but that might be because it is sort of an old ancient relic of the Citadel. You notice that there are many pipes coming out of it and into it, and as these cylindrical tubings uh, make their way into the walls, you can sense that there's something in here that's creating an expansion or contraction of liquids, likely water. Um, but I don't believe this thing makes itself familiar to you. Uh, um, the two both look at each other, think about it, and um, kind of repeat the same thing back to you. Dorian makes his way to check um, the lid, this wide metallic bung on the top of this keg, and it seems like it can be moved. But other than that, Sheldon is the only one to reply, as he says, "I've heard of metallic plumbing used in large underground areas. In Waterdeep, I've heard it's used to keep parts of the sewer from clogging. But this tiny barrel with multiple tubes and apertures, this must be some kind of ancient design." Dorian looks at you as expecting him to draw a weapon. He says, "What could be inside this thing? What, like a trapped water fairy?" Dorian kind of gives you a quick eye roll as he takes out his long sword, uh, without his shield, wields it two-handed, and kind of makes this mocking. "Oh, I guess I'll be ready then, won't I?" Uh, sure. Sheldon takes a step back and he says, "Foolish boy, this is how you get yourself killed. I'll laugh. I'll have a good laugh at the old boy inn. Isn't that right, Kavan?" Uh, and you make your way to remove the metal lid. You put your hand around the rusty uh, lid of this metallic barrel, and go ahead and give me a strength check. I don't think either cuts it. You spend about a good 30 seconds trying to remove the lid, but it is almost suctioned on top. It seems like at the very least it's heavy enough and also somehow glued to the top of this lid that it's going to take a little bit more. Dorian thinks about it for a moment, also a little confounded why this thing isn't budging. He comes up to it and says, kind of squares his shoulders against the one wall and one to the tube, gives you a nod and says, "All right, let's see if we can defeat this metal tube. On three." And he counts. One, two, three. And with the combined force of your hands, you manage to upend this lid, but it's heavy. And as you do, something almost pushes the lid off to the side, and as the lid falls to the ground with like just a gigantic metal clang, um, suddenly you see steam and air escape out of the tube, and you see two objects that slowly turn into these impish-looking elementals pop out, and they both make this hideous watery sound. One sounding like the other one hitting the ground makes a and they immediately attack. Roll initiative. All right. Oh, you are fine. I actually should have had the initiative button added. I can show you that after the game, or if we take a break. It seems you and Dorian are tied. I'm going to say you go first. You are able, excuse me, you are able much more ready for combat than he is. All right, go ahead and roll. $20 hits. The 8 misses, though. It goes wide. Roll damage. Kavan, this thing leaps out of its tube, and as it makes its way to claw you with its icy hands, or this one's actually steam. It's kind of gaseous hands. You're able to get a scimitar slipped underneath one of its arms, and you slice it through. It makes this kind of burst of air on its arm as it takes that damage, and it's not looking too great from that hit. It makes this sound as it recoils in pain. Excellent. Dorian, sensing danger now, is just as ready to hit, and he follows up his turn by attacking. Oh, I see what I did here. There we go. It should not be, his crit range should not be minus 19. It should be 19 to 20 as he has chosen the champion. But with a 20, he lands his hit, dealing 3 points of slashing damage to the ice method to the south of him. This one makes kind of crackling sounds as the longsword slams against the icy exterior of this elemental. But makes no pain sound. The steam method to the south of you immediately begins charging up. This big breath attack makes this and steam blows across, hitting everyone in its range. The 15-foot cone causes you, as well as Sheldon, to make a dexterity save here, or else get hit by supercharged hot air filled with water vapor. Neither of the two are able to get out of the way, and end up taking 6 points of fire damage as your skin is just almost blasted by the searing heat within the steam, and already you can sense the redness appear on your face as the Sheldon. He in the back makes a yelp as he did not expect something so hot. Sheldon, on his turn, senses the danger that you are in, mutters a quick incantation, and casts a guiding bolt at the steam method below. With a 23, you can hear him say, "Waters, fill me, and attack!" And a beam of light escapes from his hands as he finishes the incantation, striking down on the steam method, making this shring, hitting it and dealing 13 points of radiant damage to this beastie. At that, the steam method suddenly starts convulsing and also starts to lose its shape as its wings, arms, and legs are all now even more gaseous and translucent as they were before. It is not looking good or long for this world. On its turn, the ice method begins its assault. This time with a similar breath attack, making a icy mist escapes from its mouth. This time actually able to hit all members of the party. Everyone go ahead and make a dex save. And that includes Dorian as well this time. That's true, yeah. A +6 is very good. This icy breath goes and wraps around the corner. And from Sheldon's point of view, two bursts of extremely hot and extremely cold air has just blown out of this room. And he is partially disoriented. He maybe doesn't exactly know what's going on in there, but he can tell that it is getting quite heated in that room. Both you and Sheldon, both you and Dorian both take 5 points of cold damage, with Sheldon taking 2. And at that, come back up to Kavan's turn. These are both melee capable enemies, it looks like. So I think your estimation is correct. Sure, go ahead and roll. That first one is with advantage, so I'll take that 27 and 11 and apply it to the steam method. It was guiding bolted, so your attack's at advantage. So go ahead and now roll for the ice one. You absolutely can, but give me another roll because this first one had advantage because of the guiding bolt. Gotcha. I just needed the third roll for the second hit, but the 27 critically hits. Go ahead and give me damage. And then give me damage on the 26. The steam method, kind of its form already dissipated and shined with this radiant energy. You can see through it that it seems to have a core to it, a physical one, a solid one. and as you slash through it, you sever the connection between it and the physical realm, and it kind of explodes in this. And as that high pressure system explodes out from its body, it deals a bit of damage. Go ahead and give me another dexterity save here, as will Dorian. This thing was full of steam energy, ready to explode. Dorian quickly dives out of the way, as do you. And the immense heat from this steam effort explodes upward and outward, and you both manage to duck your heads underneath the wave of heat. The second hit, as you have just dodged it, you actually kind of like see the steam heat wave come at you, and you duck down below, sending your scimitar at around chest level to this ice method. The ice method is hit and takes the 10 points of slashing damage, and you rake this slashing weapon against its icy, solid exterior, making this like you rip off pieces of its wings, and it makes this sound. With your turn over, Dorian immediately takes two. Longsword wielded with two hands brings it down flat onto the ice method and misses. Just as the ice method was standing there, he brings it down, hits it against the ground, making this shitting, and it goes wide, nearly dropping his two-handed weapon. As he stands back to prepare himself for the next round, you can hear Sheldon in the back. No worry, I have him in my sights. Blessed Lord, bring down ruin! And he makes a cast of Sacred Flame. The ice method. It senses this radiant energy coming, but is no match. The Sacred Flame hits it, dealing 1 point of damage. At this point, the ice method is not looking great. It begins its turn, attempting to summon up another frost breath. Unable to do so, it will instead take its claws and rend the person who last attacked it. Almost trapped in a corner now, it takes its attention towards Dorian and slashes at him, unleashing this burst of sharp knife-like hands, as well as a trail of cold, supercharged cold air in front of him. It misses as it clatters against his armor, raking his chainmail, making just shing, shing, shing. They all miss, and at that, it is your turn. This ice method seems trapped in a corner, ready to defend itself to the death. What do you do? Excellent. Go ahead and roll. A 20 hits. Eight points of slashing damage does it. You finish that slashing moment, that slashing movement, as you brace yourself again at this time for another explosion of temperature. Go ahead and give me a dex save as you cleave through that solid core of the elemental. Just as this almost explosion of ice and frost happens in its core. Dorian says, "Oh, watch out!" Oh! And he is hit fully in the face by this blast. While you are able to dodge out of the way for the most part, you turn around spinning with your cloak facing it, and out blows this blast of cold air. The 2 points of ice damage, of cold damage, is dealt to Dorian. Is dealt to you, as Dorian takes the full brunt of it. But you are out of combat, and the chamber slowly now resonates with the vibrations of the explosions and bursts. Standing over the barrel, though, you see there are 6 or 4 pieces of shining bright light at the bottom of it. It is at the bottom of the barrel, so about 4 feet deep. You might have to dig your hands into it, but the water now is only about a foot above. It seems like with the escaped elementals, they took with them this water. It seems the two have balanced themselves out. You reach your hand in, and you only sense the tepid temperature of the water. There is water vapor in the air, but it is not hot nor extremely cold. He does so, and he is able to quickly pluck a tiny sapphire out of the water. As that water seems to drain from the rest of the keg, it seems there are 4 more tiny sapphires at the bottom. Meanwhile, Dorian brushes himself off, puts his hair back together, and he says, "Oh, curse these mages!" As he seems to yell at himself. He steps out of the room. Sheldon walks in, and he says, "Hey, what have you found? Is anything worth our troubles with these elemental imps?" The redness is apparent on Sheldon's face, and as he looks at the sapphires he sells, he kind of puts his hand to his forehead, rubs it a little bit, and says, "Oh, I've gone through much worse for much less." And he offers his hand to. Actually, he offers you his pack to dump the sapphires in. Do you mean Dorian? You're good. Dorian turns around, looks at you, and says, "You know, I'm not as quick as you, so yes, I will be fine. Ugh. But if we have to go through each and every room of this godforsaken dungeon, whew, let's say we alternate who goes into the rooms first. Huh? How about that?" Um, Dorian agrees and lets you lead the way. Seems not so talkative after dealing with what seemed like a surprise trap. Sheldon follows you, makes his way to the door, and hears the same thing you do, uh, and says, "No matter, I will cross this door, and should I fall in, I'll let you fish me out." Um, Sheldon moves to the door, this time more certain in uh, himself. He takes to the door and opens it, and it is, well, unlocked. When he opens the door and steps through, immediately he sees that there is a tiny, not tiny, a small kobold on the ground, kind of laid out in a heap in front of him. Dorian immediately smells the odor of a lived-in dungeon, and even the, as you see inside, this kind of roost, this kind of nest filled with hay, broken pieces of wood, all laid out in this giant circle uh, in this area right here. And it smells of just filth. You see this kobold, and when he sees you walk in, he immediately just bursts into tears uh, as he says, "Oh, oh no, I've lost him. Oh, I've lost him. Oh, poor me." And as you take into surroundings, you see there are crudely executed symbols and glyphs scribed in bright green dye decorating this entire crumbling and irregularly sized chamber. A large pit in the center shows evidence of a fire. You step forward a little bit closer to a table in front of you, as well as a metal cage to the south. Inside, there is a gaping hole, which seems to suggest something escaped out of this thing. As you speak your kind words to the kobold, it replies, and he says, "I have lost the dragon. It's escaped. Now the whole tribe will hate me, and I will never be the same." Um, as he expresses more and more of his heartsickness and his loss of the dragon, um, you can see that the this area seems to open up into many different areas. There is a hallway to the northwest, two doors to the southwest, and also a door pointed to the northeast, as well as a kind of uh, well-traveled door to in the very north on the west side of the northern wall. Um, yeah, this area seems like it has a lot of exits and entrances. This might have been some kind of atrium uh, for the Citadel in previous eras. Um, the kobold affirms your uh, deduction, and uh, he introduces himself. He, through tears, cries out and says, "Yes, this dragon escaped, and now I have nothing to bring back to the tribe. My name is
Meepo. And I am the dragon tamer to our tribe. But you, what are you doing here? Are you here to follow those people who came through? Or maybe you're here to help me find the dragon?
He asks. Meepo extends his hands to as far as they'll reach, making the size of approximately of this dragon, and he describes it.
Yes, this dragon, a white dragon, just a wormling, just a tiny little one. But yes, I lost it. Someone came, maybe stole it from us. Meepo knows Calcrix the dragon would never run away by itself. It was too happy. At least, happy with Meepo.
Meepo immediately starts nodding furiously, saying,
Yes, Meepo knows, Meepo knows, Meepo knows, and also Meepo knows people who know. Yes, a dragon was worshipped here, but also the story of a tree. Meepo does not know much about the tree, but Meepo can show you someone who does.
Meepo looks at you and says,
Well, I don't know if the tribe leader will let me, but if you're nice to her, maybe she'll let you.
Dorian, not super concerned with the situation unfolding in front of him, motions to the bench, on top of which hold these greenish jade figurines, all of which are figurines of dragons. And there seems to be 4 sat on top of the bench next to you. And he says, these kobolds live down here in this squalor. They can't afford nice things, yet these figurines would be worth a pretty penny on the market, I'm sure. Yeah. Let's say we help those we encounter here. Especially if they can afford it. Meepo looks at the figurines, looks back to you, and says,
Yeah, these figurines we've just found around. If you go looking for them, I'm sure you'll find more. We currently use those figurines, well, to make sure the dragon is happy. As you know, dragons like shiny things. And if we give it shiny things, maybe it will stay with us.
Meepo begins to tell the story as he kind of enthusiastically gets up. His demeanor and his attitude has changed after seeing you walk in here and not immediately attack him, but also be actively interested in his woes. Um, he says,
Come on, follow me. I can tell you more. I can bring you to Eustrael, and maybe you can help us get the dragon. And maybe she'll even give you stuff.
uh, Meepo is already disappeared into the hallway to the northwest. And as you turn around to look at Dorian and Sheldon, Dorian has already has his mitts on one of the figurines, and with the onlookers in the room, you can tell that he's still considering if he should pick it up, even with you two watching. Sheldon looks at him and he says, "Ooh, mind those hands. I would mind those hands if I were you." And Dorian looks to you for approval, as if to snatch one of the figurines for himself. Dorian uh, picks up the figurine and uh, tosses it to Sheldon. Sheldon catches it, sets it down onto the table, and Dorian says, "All right, I guess we can't have fun." And he leaves the figurines alone. All right. At that, I'm going to take a short break here for my voice. Uh, and we'll continue, I say, at well, about 10 minutes. All right. It seems you've encountered the first area here with signs of intelligent life. All right. Well, I'll be right back with the game. All right. I am back. All right. Um, Meepo was just ready to take you guys to the Kobold encampment. Um, as he dashes through the hallway, his pitter patters um, kind of sound out, and you can already sense that there are far more than just a few kobolds living in this area. By the time you, I think, get to here, you can already see that there are taller kobolds armed more than Meepo on the far end of this room that opens up to the north. Um, Dorian and Sheldon see uh, your attention get taken to the north, and they say, "How many kobolds do you think there are here?" Um, you finish your conversation closer to here, towards the end of the hallway. Meepo beckons you forward, and he says to you, in a whisper, um,
If if you find us again, you just need a quick password, and we'll be kind to you.
Meepo gives you that password, and he says,
It's tickle corn.
Meepo nods, and he says,
Let me take you to Eustrael.
and he rounds the corner and starts hopping away. In his eagerness, Meepo starts running, sprinting almost. And with Dorian and Sheldon following you, they are a little bit relaxed, but they have their hands at the ready. Um, by the time they make it out to the hallway area, you see that you are sort of surrounded by the tribe that Meepo was talking about. In front of this altar, uh, on top of which is a large uh, table for holding a few mismatched items, is Eustrael, and she is flanked on both sides by these kobold guards, armed with slings and daggers. Behind you, uh, through this hallway, are dotted various elites that look similar to the one standing next to Eustrael. Um, as they ready their attention, facing the party, they begin to make one step or two towards, and they ask Meepo, in a more commanding tone,
Meepo, what is this? Who are these strangers?
and Meepo replies,
They're, 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 they're kind people. They care. They've come to help us. Well, at the very least, they've come to explore. I told them, I told them about Calcrix, about how they can help us with her. Also, I told them about the tree. You know, the tree that the goblins served, whose master of the grove below.
um, and at that, one of the kobolds begins ready to admonish Meepo and saying,
Meepo, you can't just let new people in. You can't.
and his words are cut off by the robed kobold to the west, uh, named Eustrael. And as she speaks in this almost thunderous tone, and you can tell that she is using the aid of of some sort of magic. And out as her voice booms, you can hear her say, "Silence! Silence! Meepo, you have brought visitors to our realm. Tell me, who are you and why are you here?" Um, Eustrael stops the use of her thaumaturgy spell and speaks now in a more hushed tone. And she says, You come seeking many things. You are no stranger to the dark, I can see. Is the same true of your friends, your, by the looks of it, human companion? Uh, Dorian replies for himself, and he says, Well, me and the old man, we're mostly here just to, well, root out all manners of evil, and such, but also maybe discover a treasure or two. If we can be of any service, I'm sure we would love to engage with you. Um, at that, Eustrael replies and says, It is true. A dragon of ours, a white baby dragon, has been stolen from us. The goblins to the north and down below, they serve a master that we all fear. He came many moons ago, and only death and destruction has followed in his wake. If you aim to face him, I ask simply that you tread through these walls, these halls carefully. If I can be of service, let me know. In the meantime, we are most focused on retrieving our tribe's, well, inherited right to be the keepers and tamers of dragons. I can. It must be an OBS thing. It might be because, and I'm not super well versed in OBS, but um, there could be a thing to do with the audio input. You might have to switch it so that it is recording both output that you hear as well as your input. Um, and I think that might have to do with a couple sound settings, which I'm sure I could help you out with. My previous crew, they like to do sound stuff. One of them is a podcaster, and
I
so they might be able to give you tips on that.
I might have just actually fixed it. Hopefully the viewers can hear me now, and if so, well, we'll continue on.
All right. Well, with that, Eustrael looks to you and essentially gives you the breakdown, saying, "You're welcome here, but tread carefully." In addition, the goblins serve the ruler of the grove to the bottom of this chasm. Um, and if you can help her, uh, she would greatly appreciate it.
Just taking a moment to thank the person who pointed that out. And with that said, Kavan explains, my friends and I, we were attacked by a pair of methods contained in a room well, ways back behind us. Might we rest with you for a time and learn more of this place? We would be interested to hear anything you can tell us of the city, and you mentioned goblins as well. We've seen many dead, in fact.
Eustrael speaks and says, "Yes, we contest these grounds with the goblins. There has never been an easy peace. I'm afraid for the past few years we have gone back and forth. Our numbers grow and dwindle based on our conflict with them. If you've seen goblins in the front, then it must mean we are losing ground and territory here.
And
Perhaps what we need more than a dragon is a lasting peace with the other tribe here."
Kavan lifts a gloved hand in agreement, noting peace is often beneficial when territory is limited, but you may not be as contested as you think. These goblins were dead, you see, some of them for quite some time. One of them had been struck with a spear, but it was not a goblin spear or nor kobold. And we wondered perhaps if it might have been a battle with the people we're looking for.
Eustrael takes this time to consider the circumstances. "You said others are down here as well. It seems you have run into the trail of the previous party that came looking for trouble. I
Hmm.
believe they have never been heard from again, but they certainly passed here but a week or two ago.
Hmm.
They went to find the goblins, perhaps even to fight them. They have not returned since."
Hmm. And Kavan furrows his brow in a rather troubled manner as he takes a seat upon the floor, and he inquires of Eustriel, um, uh, leaving them aside for the moment. May I ask where you are receiving these dragon's eggs from, and of the tree? Or do you know anything of it, or in particular its fruit?
Um, the two questions hit Eustrael with this kind of conflicted emotion. On its reptilian face, you can see one kind of seize up. One of the questions seems easy for it to answer. So she says, "The fruit I can answer. It comes from the grove below. The outcast, he is called, grows the fruit between the seasons, and he gives them to the goblins, making sure they peddle it on the surface. I
Hmm.
do not understand or pretend to understand his intentions. I can only assume
they are for selfish reasons. The us, to us, this egg is sacred. We kobolds are heir to the dragons. As the mightiest among my people, I have led a brave few to this ancient, holy site. I do not know much about this fortress, nor can I tell you the source of our eggs. That, I am afraid, is a well-kept secret. Perhaps if we find ourselves greater allies in the future, I can tell you more. But until then, I must keep my people and their secrets safe with me.
Kavan nods his head slowly in understanding, explaining to Eustrail, I too once lived here in the darkness, and I understand, well, how guarded we must be in order to survive. You're a noble leader to think first of the needs of your people. And he pauses for a moment. Of course, we will eventually have to leave the safety of your hall and venture outside into the ruins of the city. So I would instead ask you, is the ancient dragon of which we have heard still alive?
Eustrail easily answers this question and spits out a singular answer.
No,
Hmm.
Ashadalon is long dead. His red scales no longer burn with ancient evils. I have not found one, and I hope to keep it that way.
Hmm. Kavan tilts his head just slightly. Red scales, he repeats, and he says more to himself than anything. And yet the dragons you rear have scales which are white, so a different source then. And he seems to resolve that these kobolds seem trustworthy to him for the moment. Kavan asks, might we rest for some hours in your hall before we continue onward? And I'll tell you more of what's happening on the surface concerning the fruit. Perhaps we can help each other through exchanging our tales.
Eustrail nods in agreement to this, issues an order in Draconic to the kobold to the north, who then follows the wall here and starts heading east. Eustrail says,
I agree to these terms. Allow my people's ground to be your people's ground.
And she gives you the A-OK. It seems like to rest in her territories.
All right, in that case, Kavan is going to turn to the other two and explain. It seems we have safety for some hours at least to tend our wounds from that unfortunate incident. And perhaps you, Sheldon, would know some magic to quicken that along?
Sheldon replies with affirmative, nods his head, and says, I could help you. It looks like further down we'll need some more help as well. Come, let us rest.
All right.
And Easy makes his way to an open room here. He looks inside, finds a good suitable spot, and begins to take out his pack. One of the kobolds comes by and speaks for Meepo, who seems like is still speaking with Eustrail. And as he comes over, he stops by the door and says,
We have opened up a few empty rooms for you. The other places I do not recommend accessing. Those are yet off limits to you.
And before the kobold can move on, Kavan lifts a gloved hand and he inquires, uh, rather than wander anywhere that might offend your tribe, might I ask where we can go, which might lead us further into the fortress or the city beyond?
The kobold takes your question, thinks about it, and heads towards Eustrael. And you can hear him say, I will attempt to process your request. But for the time being, he leaves. Sheldon takes his pack out, ready to cast a few salves upon the party. As he takes out a tonic, it looks like a bottle of, or a vial of capped water, he begins to whisper a sacrament. He looks to Dorian and says, Come, bring your hands and your face so that I may apply this sacred ointment. And as he makes a prayer to Eldath, he is able to channel her divinity into this bottle of what seems to be just spring water. And as he splashes it across his hands, his forehead, he offers some to you as well as Dorian.
And Kavan is quite willing to receive this gesture, especially given the burnt state of his face. If nothing else, the water would no doubt feel a bit relieving.
And as you share in this sacrament, I believe you are healed. You are healed for an amount equal to, well, I think all of your hit points currently. At least the damage that has been done. The 5 damage done to Dorian, the 2 damage done to you, or maybe 4, as well as the 2 damage done to Sheldon.
All right. Kavan bows his head in gratitude to Sheldon, and he explains, for a man with no goddess, yours certainly seems to be quite receptive to your prayers, my friend.
Sheldon replies, he says,
She does not always listen to my direct prayers, but I am able to still channel her power. It is, after all, the only thing that brings a man of my age strength and meaning in even the darkest of times.
oh, and he seems to be suggesting that while he is a still practitioner and believer, he might still be out of any formal guilds or churches or religions. Well, everyone's going to heal up.
Kavan doesn't further pry, but he does reach around to his supplies and fetch a bedroll, which he puts upon the floor. And there's also, it looks to be a bench in here. He explains to his companions, I do not sleep, but you may see me sitting still, quite still for some hours. Try your best not to think it strange. I find that humans often do. We should get some rest, nevertheless.
They agree to it. and they begin setting their packs.
And I would say, while we have the luxury of safety, we'll take a full rest maybe. And Kavan would need 4 hours in trance.
I think they both suggest that they are okay without taking a short rest, or without taking a full long rest. But I believe Sheldon says he could go either way. Dorian is okay without taking a long rest. So I believe if one person with it, one person without it, it is up to you as the tiebreaker.
Kavan inquires of Sheldon, would you need more time, he asks, to regain the holy energies your lady gives you?
Sheldon says, I've gone many days without my abilities. I am still quite ready, if that is what you mean. And essentially says, but if you would like to take a extended rest, you're more than welcome to. Do not worry for me.
Kavan explains to the two, this may be our last opportunity to rest in any form of safety for some time, and I consider us fortunate to have found even this. But if the two of you are already feeling ready to move, then, well, I require no more than 4 hours, and I am as good as fully slept.
They both agree to a 4-hour break, and they begin setting up for a short rest. If you'd like to take that now, go ahead and mark it down. Restore whatever you need to.
Pardon me, had a little dinner going on there and didn't want to talk.
You're fine. If you'd like to take like a quick break here too, let me know.
Oh no, we're good. With the short rest over, Kavan, well, he's tried to not creep out his companions, but he does sit there for 4 hours, just seemingly staring off into nothingness. And then suddenly he blinks once and stands up as if nothing had happened. With a nod of his head, he explains to the other two, if you're feeling well and ready, then I believe I could proceed.
You look at your two companions. Sheldon looks like he has taken some time to clean himself off, dust off his robes of any kind of frosty residue, and also prepared. It seems like another feature. He has seemingly refilled his flask of water, and Dorian, who has simply been kind of similarly, not quite in an elvish trance, but very much in a fighter's trance. It seems for the past 30 minutes, has seemingly dusted off his armor and also maybe even sharpened his blade. As he puts his hand to it, you can tell that he's at least polished off the handle. It seems he is ready to fight, more ready to fight than when you met him originally. And he says, all right, enough dilly-dallying.
Must be this night.
If there are goblins to kill, let's get to it.
And would you say Kavan has any sense of what time it might be up above?
It's difficult to say, but I don't think it has gone past to the next day. The next day's dawn has not yet arrived. So when you left, you maybe got there in the morning. You traveled for 3 to 4 hours. and then you spent some time here. It could be late at night the same day you arrived, or it could be early morning. You know that much.
Well, Kavan can be heard to say, in a quiet voice, really, as if he were speaking to someone who were literally present. My Lady Salune, if your light reaches even these depths, then please bless us as we proceed further into this place. I fear there may be some great evil at work here. And with that done, he heads for the door, and he doesn't seem to really expect a reply, but nevertheless, he appears somewhat reassured for having offered the words.
To back up those words, Sheldon seemingly once again takes out his censer and begins to burn some incense there. Careful not to light it too strong within the presence of the kobolds. He does carry it with one hand, along with his holy book keeps with him. As he heads forward, he says, "Let our goddesses light the way. If we should find anything treacherous, let this light protect us from it." And he starts heading to the east. When he does, one of the kobolds says,
"Well, seem ready to go. If you're ready, I've been told to give you permission to use the shortcut if you'd like. It would take you directly to the goblins. So that much I cannot recommend. Otherwise, the path down will take perhaps a bit longer."
And Kavan asks in turn, tell me more of these goblins. Your leader seems to hope to acquire some manner of peace with them. Are they even to be spoken with?
This kobold doesn't seem too fond of the goblins. At the mention of it, it makes this.
"Yes, the goblins we must make peace with. If you find these goblins, and they have bows aimed at your chest, my advice is to cut them down before they're able to release their arrows. But I assume you are capable of peace as well. In that case, make it known. If they were to see one of us, I'm sure they would not hesitate to loose a bolt my way."
But on the other hand, Kavan says, as he thinks for a moment, if I were to bring word of Eustrael's wish for peace, well, and he gives thought, I should consider myself to have gained a bit of my own form of treasure, simply leaving this place knowing that the goblins and the kobolds are no longer shedding each other's blood. But in the meantime, it sounds as though this shortcut of yours might be our best option.
The kobold takes you to the door that he was guarding. Asks the other one next to him for a key. And he says,
"Let me have it. Yes, thank you."
And he takes the key to it with a few clicks. He is able to unlock it. As he opens the door, steps aside, he points and gestures toward you to look inside. And he says,
"Be careful. There is a pit in the middle of the next room.
But beyond that is another room, and beyond that is where you will find the goblins. You may wish for peace, but sometimes, in fact, most of the times, I find a wish is not enough. Go. Go with the strength to speak your truth, but also go with the strength to take a shot to the neck, should you speak too loud.
Kavan takes this word of advice with a grateful nod, and he starts to step toward the indicated door, but pauses. As he looks at the kobold, he asks, "Is it possible that the goblins have your dragon, or might you have noticed it passing down any passage which would lead to them?"
The kobold does not know how to answer as he looked at you kind of without a response. He says, "The goblins have always been vying for power here in the dark. Maybe they take the dragon so they can free themselves from the outcasts below. Maybe that same person commands them to steal our belongings, to make us weak so that they can take over our tribe."
And this seems to remind Kavan of something. And he asks the kobold, "Tell me more of this outcast. Is he one of your kind, or the goblins, or something else entirely?"
The kobold once again makes this like, "No, he is like your friends. Tall and untrustworthy. Greedy eyes with long faces." And at this, Dorian kind of makes this like, "What did I do?" shrug. And he says, "All right, pump the brakes there." And the kobold continues and says, "We do not know much about him besides he came many moons ago, intent on finding something in the grove. Outside of that, he has only ever been brought up when we speak ill of the goblins."
Yes, Kavan says, "The goblins have been to where we come from, to the lighted world above. And we've heard tales of them selling a red fruit to the villagers. And we do not know much about it ourselves, but they are paying large amounts of gold for it. Do you have any idea as to why they would do that?"
Once again, this kobold seems quite pessimistic in his view of the goblins. And he says, "Probably to make a bit of coin so they can outseat us, to murder us, to hire mercenaries, to kill us in our sleep," as he stares at Dorian, as if slinging accusation. "Is this one of your assassins sent from the surface?"
And Kavan looks rather confused for the moment, and he simply asks, "Assassins from the surface? What do you mean?"
The kobold replies and says, "I would not be surprised if they came up to the surface to sell that fruit so they can make money to hire assassins to kill us.
We guard this ancient temple because it is our way, and they know they cannot convince us to leave. So they send them to attack us and kill us. I can trust you only as far as I can throw a stone at you.
Well, Kavan does seem to understand that very much, and he gestures to his own face. You know a drow when you see one, I'm sure, he tells the kobold, and having spent most of my life here rather than above in the world of the sun, I know how little one can trust. That said, please know that my friends and I, we are, though they may be wanting of treasure, of good intentions at the end of the day. You have shown us hospitality, and we ask only to cooperate with you in peace.
He looks like he's ready to sling another insult or accusation your way as he takes a deep breath, as he says, "Well, if I," and then out from back to the west, you can hear Meepo kind of happily skipping along, coming up to you guys and interrupting your conversation as he says,
Hey guys, well, what are we talking about? Are we ready to? We're ready to find Calcrix.
and then the kobold kind of softens a little bit and says,
Ah, Meepo. Did you, Strael, approve of your mission?
Meepo nods heavily and says,
Yes, she did. Come, come. I will take you to Calcrix, or at least I will find her for you.
and at that the kobold steps aside and waves the party forward and says,
What you do here is very important for us, Meepo. So I will help you.
and you see him kind of begrudgingly move into the chamber, take out a short sword, a goblin short sword that he had on his person, and kind of stick it into this similar pit trap that you saw before. As he does so, he kind of triggers the pit trap as it kind of shoots open. But as it slowly starts to close, he wedges the short sword within the hinges of the pit, and makes this area safe to walk across.
And Kavan, at this point, seems a bit confused. He asks Meepo, have you been commanded to come with us? Because if so, well, you should know that we may head into dangerous places along our way.
Meepo looks at you and says,
Danger. Danger's my last name.
The kobold in front of him says,
Meepo, you know that's not true.
Meepo says,
Well, I don't care. I've done a lot of great things for us, and this might be my chance to do even more great things, like find Calcrix.
Kavan looks around and at the far back of the hall just to see if he can sight Eustrael and perhaps her expecting gesture that he does allow Meepo to come along. In fact, he doesn't even wait to see such an expression. He just assumes it's there. He tells Meepo, well, you may be brave and giving and perhaps even skilled in combat, but do be careful because, well, we've already happened upon one unpleasant surprise before we met, and I should hate to lose you before you find Caltrix.
Meepo responds kind of happily, but no less cautiously, and he says,
When you find Calcrix, I'll be the one to warn you, okay?
And then he rushes forward past the secret door, not the secret door, the hidden pit. And as he does, Dorian kind of gives you and the Sheldon this look like, really, we're gonna let this pipsqueak lead us. And Sheldon replies, well, he does sort of remind me of someone that I know. And he looks over to Dorian. Dorian rolls his eyes and reluctantly walks into the room.
And as Kavan follows along behind Dorian, he comments, at times when one is in a maze, the smallest of creatures are the ones who know the wisest routes to take.
And that Dorian kind of turns around to you and does this like walking backwards, and he says, "A rat gets the cheese, I guess." And then Sheldon follows up. And when you come to this door, Meepo motions towards it as he sees you walk into sight of it, and he whispers,
Up ahead, I can smell something. Smells like goblins.
And Kavan turns one of his ears toward the door, or one presumes, with it being under his hair and his hood. And he, as he's listening, he asks, "Do the goblins normally come this close to your home?"
The kobold replies to you, and he says,
Well, yes. We just make sure there's already a separation.
As he motions towards the pit in the other room.
He says, as long as there's something keeping us separate, well, we don't usually get into that much trouble. But yes, last time we fought, they used this shortcut against us. So, maybe we should do something about it should this mission fail.
Well, at the least, perhaps your people should drop the pit again. I wouldn't wish for us to fail and for the goblins to come rushing in with the way undefended.
Meepo then says,
Well, good point. But what if we need to make a quick escape?
Well, Meepo, you've agreed to be a hero for your people, and at times heroes must perish to save the greater whole.
Meepo looks at you skeptically and says,
That doesn't make any sense. I can be a hero and also run away.
It's true that you can be a hero and also run away, but as you've explained to me, there's just one room with a pit dividing your people from war with the goblins. And so, would you wish to be able to run if it meant leading the goblins back to your own kind?
Meepo says,
Yes, of course. If I fight with my friends, I'll be much better than fighting by myself.
At this point, Kavan takes a deep breath, holds it for a moment, and then says, "Why don't you show us the way forward, Meepo?"
Meepo looks at you and he says,
Good, good. Take more breaths. It's good for if you need to run.
Also good for patience, Kavan emphasizes as he looks over his shoulder to his companions.
You look at them and they kind of look at Meepo and look at you just as skeptically, but they are also both wielding their weapons, ready to start a fight if need be. When Meepo comes to the door, he begins to listen. And as he spends more and more time there, he's able to intimate a few things. Those few things are,
I smell more than one goblin. I hear more than one goblin. Maybe if we open the door and say, "We come in peace," maybe we say it really loud, they will hear us and they will understand us.
Kavan holds up a hand and he tilts his own head closer to the door as if trying to see what he can make out rather than relying solely upon Meepo's own judgment.
yeah, go ahead and give me a perception check. From what you can tell, Meepo is entirely correct. You hear the sounds of life on the other side, and it sounds like and it sounds like a goblin is having a conversation with another goblin.
And asking for your elaboration, does it sound as though there are only two or maybe more?
You can only pick out two voices, I think. But it does seem like Meepo is correct in his assessment that there are multiple goblins in the next room.
In that case, Kavan does not have his weapons drawn at the moment, but he nods over his shoulder to Sheldon and Dorian, and then he puts his hand upon the door, waits for a moment, and then simply pushes it open if so able. It's not locked, is it?
As you go for the door, it is indeed not locked.
And all right, and the moment he pushes the door open, he speaks in Undercommon. "Stay your weapons. We are not here to fight."
As you go for it, the door creaks open, making this, and inside, three goblins jump to attention. Both two of the ones in front of you screaming,
Easy black, easy black,
and the other one in the back screaming,
east black, east black, east black.
And it seems like they're telling each other to get ready to fight. But as you move in and say those words, Meepo is standing there, also no weapon drawn, and the goblin in front kind of calms down, making this like,
What are you doing here? Explain yourselves.
Kavan continues speaking in Undercommon, explaining, "We mean you no harm, certainly. So please be at ease." And he gives them a moment before explaining to them, "My companions and I, we're searching for many things, and we believe that our way forward lies through the land of the goblins, or should I say the halls of the goblins. Therefore, we come seeking permission to have safe passage."
You say those words, and as you do, the goblin, one of the goblins, cannot help himself but attempt to escape from this room. When he does, he makes to the door, opens it, and dashes out of it. And as you finish your speech, the goblins in front nod and look at each other. One of them takes a cautious step back, and he says,
You are not here to kill us. Okay.
And Kavan shakes his head, his silver hair sort of just dancing alongside as he does so. No, I'm not here to kill you, he replies. To the contrary, I should like to see less of you die. And he gestures over his shoulder toward Meepo. Um, the kobold's leader is in fact interested in making peace with your people. I know not what manner of conflict has been brewing between the two of you, but I should be glad to see you shedding no further blood when I leave this place.
The goblin replies, and he says,
I do not believe we've met. My name is Kremak.
Kremak, he says, nodding his head appreciatively. My name is Kavan, and my friends further back are Dorian and Sheldon. We're from the lands far above, the lands of sunlight. And we understand that, in fact, some of your people have been making journeys far above as of late.
Yes. We make a journey to sell the fruit. You know much about us. Maybe our leaders will give you an audience. Come, you should meet them. I'm sure they would want to speak to you.
the goblin makes this very uncomfortable, like lip smacking sound, and begins to head to the door into the other room. Meepo says to you,
They seem awfully friendly. Why is that?
They may be afraid of the drow. Kavan hazards a guess, and he turns then toward the goblin who's been speaking primarily with him and asks, I assume my friend here, meaning Meepo, he indicates with a gesture, is given a promise of peace. We should hate to have to draw blades in his defense.
The goblin leading you says,
Yes, no fighting, no sharps. Only speaking.
Kavan seems satisfied for the moment, and partly because he knows further back Dorian and Sheldon have not quite been so trusting, and he follows after the goblin.
You do so. The goblin walks into the other room, and the goblin here in this room by himself doesn't go to pick up his weapons. He kind of stays there, a little bit shocked at the situation. Meepo says,
Hi, my name's Meepo.
And the goblin doesn't say anything. Yeah. Meepo follows you, and as do Sheldon and Dorian. When they come upon this door, this goblin has apparently just been ringing it, just struggling with it, opening it. And when he finally does, he slams it open, hitting it against the opposite wall. It dashes through and starts yelling in Goblin. When Kremak turns around, he says,
Do not mind him. I will try to make a good case for you. I'm sure Grenell, our wise elder, could speak to you. But be careful with those two.
And as he points to Dorian and Sheldon, he says,
a few days ago, Dern, our chieftain, had a disagreement with a human. It did not end well for the human.
And at that, Kavan is quick to lift a hand, and he says, only a few days ago, and it did not end well. May I ask what happened?
Kremek does not know much as he replies,
Hmm. Only thing I knew was that they came here. Came here to speak to the outcast below. I have not seen them since.
Hmm.
But they were no pushovers. Much like yourself. They looked like they could handle themselves.
Yes, we found goblin corpses. Well, I regret to say, at the entrance to this great fortress, but we do not understand what it is they seek from the outcast. In fact, we do not understand the fruit itself, which your people are said to sell. The people on the surface must gain something from it because they are selling gold the likes of which you would not imagine to receive fruit in trade.
the goblin looks at you, sizes you up again differently this time. Oops. And senses something more than just wanting to help, as he senses some ability to understand. And he says,
Hmm. From what I know, meet me here after you speak to our leaders. They may send someone with you down below.
Well, as you wish. And are there any forms of respect one should show? I did not deal often with goblin kind when I lived in the Underdark.
Kremek this time answers probably the most helpful way he can. And he says,
You are in our territory now. All of the respect you have, you will need, and you must show. Dern will not be slighted. Not until his death.
Kavan.
and as he
Oh, sorry.
walks past the door, he walks in and starts speaking in common. Not common, in Goblin. Letting everyone know that there are not intruders here to kill you. That there are simply three people who are seeking answers to the people who came before. And people who seek to bargain and barter.
Before Kavan even attempts to follow, he turns to address both Dorian and Sheldon. He's explaining, uh, we have an opportunity to speak with the leader of these goblins, and evidently he was quite insulted by a human, perhaps a few days ago. And from the way he phrased it, I fear that human may no longer live. The others were evidently attempting to reach this outcast that we've been told of.
Dorian looks at you and starts stepping back, and he says,
Well, I don't like my chances here, but well, I've really never liked my chances. If you walk into that room and they start shooting arrows at us, look, I'm saving Sheldon first, and then me second. So, if my body blocks the door, you can kick it. But, ooh. Do we really want to be talking to these goblins?
Kavan, he almost chuckles at the way Dorian goes about saying that, and he even shows a bit of a smile. I'm most honored by your compassion for my well-being, he replies to Dorian. why don't both of you wait here? I speak a language which they understand, so they may be perhaps less nervous if you are not with me.
Um, Dorian says, right. Yeah, that sounds good. Look, I was kidding earlier. I'd definitely kick you through the door first before taking it myself. And he chuckles to himself as he switches his longsword for a crossbow. And he says, "What's that? What's the password again? How about you use that if you're in danger, and we'll come in crossbows ablazing."
It was, and he's careful to lower his voice just in case there's any credibility to the password matter. And he says, I believe it was tickle corn.
Meepo says,
Shh, you can't say that. But okay, yes.
And Kavan simply looks just a touch overwhelmed by the absurdness of his situation. He's seemingly about to walk into peace negotiations between uh, goblins and kobolds, and he has two companions who are debating whether or not they would save him if the goblins were to start shooting. Uh, there's nothing he can do except look upward as if to ask Salune for help, and he heads into the room.
Meepo can be seen taking out his sling and weighing a couple rocks in his hand, and he says,
Good luck.
and when you make your way into this room, uh, the previous hallway, you leave the, I think, the coldness of that previous hallway. Instead, you move into this just incredibly, how should I say this, very, very, very odorous room. In a giant pile to the south, there just seems to be a giant heaping dump full of odds and ends, wagon wheels, rusted arms of chairs, chests, small statues, antique furniture, as well as even artwork. All of it seems to spread out upon this mass on the floor, and above you, you see these sconces filled with violet glowing fungus, casting this purplish glow and providing illumination across the room. This area might have once been a cathedral, but now it is rife with goblins and functions as their lair. As you follow Creamac into the middle of the room, some of the more commoner goblins start making their way to the edges, afraid of what a drow might bring to their colony. Two goblins to the north make motions towards their hips, and the goblin that came in screaming his head off starts knocking on this door to the far northwest side, ready to open it, or at least bash in the doors as he makes a doo 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 as he screams in goblin.
Help! Help! Intruders!
In a somewhat lackadaisical tone. It doesn't quite give you the same kind of impact as a scream might do. But as the goblin in front of Creamac makes his way to the center, he says,
Calm down, calm down. Creamac has said they are here just to trade. Let's listen to what he has to say before taking out our weapons.
and another goblin here can be seen standing, trying to guard what looks like to be a chair or a couch, as he immediately tries to sit down on it, and he draws a blunt stick and kind of points it at you. The pounding goes on long enough, and the door opens, and out walks an old uh, looking goblin. Um, Beyond, you see another goblin. This one much taller, about 6 feet tall, red-skinned and wearing splint mail. As he makes his way to the door, he says, "You've certainly made a ruckus. What do you want me for?" As he looks outside, he sees you, and the old wizened one in front of him with almost graying hairs speaks out and says, "It seems to be a drow, Your Eminence. Come to parley with us, no doubt on behalf of the kobolds."
And Kavan uh, inclines his head respectfully to what seems to be the leader of this tribe of goblins. And speaking in Undercommon, he explains, I am no friend of my own kind, first of all, so please do not be in fear of that. Um, while it is true that the goblins do wish peace with you, and they have asked me to tell you this, I am actually here with hopes of securing passage through your territory. We are seeking humans who have gone missing recently, as well as information on the dragon who once lived here and a strange tree growing red fruit, we're told tended to by an outcast.
Dern, who is looking already quite upset, but also holding a fair amount of tough machismo about him, wishes to move closer to you to speak. And as he does, he bumps into the goblin in front of him, and he says to the goblin condescendingly, "Get out of my way! I don't need you protecting me. It's just a simple drow." And he moves to actually knock this one over. The golem succumbs and is immediately shoved to the ground before you. As he gets splayed across the ground, Durin moves directly towards you. And Grenell says, "Your Eminence, please, allow me to..." And he is immediately cut off by Dern, who barges in with a proposition of his own. "Speak now, speak clearly. What do you want to know, and who are you working for? I've killed men far greater than you. So, tell me the truth. Are you here to kill our master? Or are you here to make a fool out of yourself?"
Kavan answers quite bluntly, I am in the service of the Lady Selune, goddess of the moon. And he gives pause, expecting laughter, but nevertheless seeming entirely serious. And he then says, just as I have told you, I've come in search of humans who have gone missing from the surface. And we are told that they may have been through here, and perhaps one struck down by you, in search of this outcast and the tree.
As he speaks, he returns a retort with, "This tree you speak of, I know of no tree. Say there was a tree. What would you want to know about it? Maybe I can help you. Are you looking for a fruit tree? Maybe an apple tree?"
Kavan doesn't quite seem to know how to go about this, and so he simply continues with his bluntness. The people on the surface are paying great amounts of gold for something which looks like an apple, but on the surface, an ordinary apple would be worth perhaps a copper or two, not an entire life savings. We believe this tree to be growing something very much different from an apple.
At this, Cremak speaks and he says,
Yes, Your Eminence. Maybe he seeks to simply purchase the tree directly, or fruit directly. Please forgive me for speaking."
And Dern turns around to him and says, "Hmm, you better show more respect if you wish to speak in front of me like that. You, outsider, it is true I have heard of this fruit, and say that information meant something to you. What would you do with it?"
Well, it would lead me to more questions, Chieftain. For example, uh, what is it about this fruit that might lead a goblin or a man to give all that they own just for one piece of it?
And he says, "Easy. It heals them of all of their mortal wounds and diseases."
And you receive this fruit freely from the outcast.
Um, Go ahead and give me a persuasion check, as it seems Dern isn't quite fond of letting go of secrets or really giving any room in a conversation. Um, Not great.
Uh,
Um,
Not his strong suit.
sure. At this, Kremak attempts to speak in your place, and he says, "Yes, I believe he." And then Dern kind of like gives him a backhand across the temple and says, "Shut up. I am the chieftain here. I speak. If this fruit is of so importance to you, then I say go down and find the gardener of this fruit. I'm sure he would like to speak to you as well. Isn't that right?" And he kind of like scans the room as if everyone agrees with his assumption that that they should try their best to help this powerful man downstairs.
Kavan nods once solemnly, closes his eyes for a moment, saying in a grim tone, "Yes, I'm sure he would like to meet us and anyone else who should come down here inquiring about him. Uh, Before we go, and I'm assuming you're granting us safe passage to do so, two matters. One, I have a companion, actually three, but I speak of the kobold with me. The chieftain of their tribe wishes to speak of a peace with your tribe, and he has come along with us more in search of a lost dragon, but also to bear the word of his people.
Um, at this, Dern seems satisfied in his victory in conversation with you. Grenell speaks up for him, as he seems that his co-chieftain here has been appeased. And when he speaks, he says, "Yes, I believe we have spoken in the past. However, I do not believe it is Dern's wishes to make a lasting truce with what he sees are simply weaker creatures. Creatures that do not belong here. Not in this rich and bountiful Underdark. As long as he is alive, he will rule this land. Isn't that true, O great eminence?" Uh, Dern nods to this and says, "Hmm, we have the power. We have the means and might to keep it. Why should we make peace with so feeble of dragons? I say we are better than dragons. We are goblins and hobgoblins."
Kavan can only look at this, well, the much larger of the two co-chieftains, as he explains, "I myself am of the Underdark. My blood is of these caverns, even deeper still than these. And yet I did not belong here. I belonged on the surface with the humans and others. But even so, I should say that I was not weak for it, and in fact, in my cleverness, I found survival. I believe the kobolds to be a very clever people, and perhaps they have more to offer you than you have given them a chance to show.
Um, this Grenell speaks and says, "It is true. Belak controls our goings. Isn't that right, Dan? Should you wish, you could take the tree for yourself, your eminence, and no longer bow to the will of someone so weak and human." And at this, Dern puffs his chest up, knowing his ego is being stroked, but also definitely enjoying it. And he says, "Yes, I could take it for myself if I wanted to. In fact, you, Drow, you could help me. You could become, well, among us, a champion and hero. Should you wish to remove this druid, I would, of course, compensate you fairly."
Kavan lifts a gloved hand and he explains, I seek no compensation. I merely wish to find any of the humans who yet live, and on that matter, uh, it was mentioned that one of the humans might have been struck down by you only days ago.
Durnan polishes some dust off of his shoulder and his um, looks like here newly uh, minted armor, and he kind of does it casually but very much with intent. And he replies, "Yes, you see, I've recently acquired a nice set of armor and ring." And he lifts up his goblin fingers, and on one of his ring fingers is situated a resplendent gold signet ring, inset with a ruby, as described in the bounty posting. And he says, "Mm, some human thought he could make the better of me, but I showed him who was much stronger. His sister was not quite as amused, I'm sure."
Kavan is, well, greeted with a rather grim sight when he sees the ring, and he has to take a moment to consider how to play this before he finally says, in return for that ring upon your finger, as well as uh, promise that you will guard both your lands and those of the kobolds against any threats which may arrive in our wake should we anger the druid. I will go without you to contend with him. It would be my preference to have one so strong guarding those who have given us safe haven, both yourselves and the people of the kobold tribe.
Dern kind of makes a promise that he, I think, very much in this moment, is totally fine with keeping or not keeping. So I think even without an insight check, he's very happy to say, "Yes, remove this druid, who's, I'm sure, all sorts of evil. Yes, yes, yes. Take him out, and you will have my blessings to do what you will upon this city. And I will, yes, 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 defend it, as I am the strongest and only one capable."
And the ring?
Is but a trinket. How about, say, exchange it for 50 gold pieces?
Ooh, I need to. I was actually looking to see if I even have that much. Instead, he produces, say, two of the. Well, actually, he doesn't have them, but he waves Sheldon forward, I believe, and quietly requests two of the sapphires while he's at the door.
Sheldon takes out his pack, rifles through it, and pulls out all five actually, and he hands them to you.
Uh, Kavan takes the sapphires back in his fist with his dark leather glove closed, and when he extends two of his fingers, two of the sapphires roll forward upon them. He says, "Would you take these in trade for the ring? I do not
Um,
carry much gold."
Durin walks up to you, and as he removes his ring, he swipes them out of your fingers, and in its place, he drops the ring from his other hand and says, "Keep it. These should serve me nicely."
Ooh.
And steps back. And as he does, he yells out to his entire crew, and he says, "Hobgoblins, goblins, and you weaklings before me, hear me now. This drow and his crew will move through my territories unharmed, or else you'll answer to me. You hear me? Good. Because if I need to repeat myself, you'll be hearing me from the sound of my blade. You got that?" And with that, all of the goblins in view hang their heads and nod towards Dern, and some of them you can hear utter the phrase that has been uttered already many times this conversation with a "Yes, your eminence. Yes, your eminence. Yes, your eminence. Yes, your eminence."
While they're very busy giving their sign of loyalty to their leader and listening to him, Kavan, well, quite quietly drops the remaining sapphires that he's kept hidden in his glove down into his pouch. And quickly he gestures for his companions to come forward so that they might pass through the room. And speaking in common, he explains, "For the moment at least, we have peace and permission to pass. I would suggest that we do not tarry here."
Dorian looks at you, nods, and he says, "Good God. Just the smell of this place makes me want to leave. Yes, let us pass through quickly." And Sheldon, kind of with the robes by his face, makes a similar gesture and says, "Yes, let's keep moving. I cannot stand any more of this." Meepo says, "Yeah, let's go."
And would they appear to be indicating the northern doorway when they're offering passage?
This northwest doorway that they have kind of gathered outside of.
All right. In that case, Kavan will lead the way toward the door, and again, gesturing for his companions to follow.
As you do so, Dern interrupts you and says, "Hold on a minute. You're gonna want to hear this. Hey, you, Creamac. Yeah." Creamac comes up to him and says, "Yes, your eminence. What can I do for you?" Take these, party, and make sure they're met with warm welcomes and congratulations." "Yes, your eminence. Whatever you say." And then Creamac motions you to move forward and says, "Quick, let's go down this vine before he changes his mind." And the rest of you move into the small tower here and begin following Cremak as he descends this room with a giant hole in the middle that seems to be covered in vines. As you pass through this room, you also notice the looks like here chest as well as throne of the goblin chief. A circular shaft pierces this floor and goes about 40 feet downward. And on top there is a domed chamber. You can see these violet lights shine out from the shaft, revealing these vines. A large iron chest serves as the throne's footstool, and a sapling grows in a pot next to the throne.
Kavan sort of gives the sapling a look for a moment, but decides he doesn't quite have time for it. He doesn't want to lose track of the goblin who's guiding them. So rather than make a deal over that, he tells them in common, it appears as though we're going to have to climb. We have only vines to go by, so do take care, but it seems to support them well enough. And without further hesitation, he throws himself over the side into climbing along the wall.
Cremak says, yes. Move quickly. And by the time you're at the very bottom of the shaft, he says to you, did you see the chest? Should Dern, ever succumb, you'll know where to find where he keeps his valuables. And then this is where I take you to the next floor of this area. In that quick intermission, it seems like you've made some kind of temporary peace with the goblins. I'm sure you can also sense the political divide, too, that is there. As I put you here in this next area, the environment begins to change. These walls that are now slowly turning into more weathered and worn stone, along with more and more patches of dirt and vegetation showing up. You begin to smell again this rot that fills the air. And by the time you get to the very bottom here, you are met with a sight of not exactly welcoming sight. All around you are luminescent fungus shedding violet light, clinging to the walls and ceiling of this wide cavern. The air has become damp, chilly, and redolent with the odors of loam and decay. All around you are these layers of earth mixed on top of each other with rotting vegetation and the remains of half desiccated and rotting cave animals. Several varieties of mushrooms and fungi grow on the detritus, as well as a few saplings.
And as Kavan looks around, just from his days in the Underdark, would he recognize any of these, the fungi or the saplings, anything of that nature?
The saplings he's not too familiar with, but they look like much of the saplings he's seen before. In fact, some of them also have this almost deadened look. Some of them seem to be missing leaves entirely, yet they are still growing in their patches. The fungi are reminiscent of the phosphorescent fungus that you are pretty much found everywhere in the Underdark. If anything, they remind him of home.
Kavan finds the reminder not entirely pleasant, but he's drawn with greater concern toward the sight of the saplings. there was one above next to the goblin's throne, and there are yet more down here. And at their deadened appearance, he's reminded of the shrub back in the town, also deadened, and the trees along the way to the ravine. And he begins to think to himself, Lady Selune, I venture now into the heart of evil, I believe. Please be with me, be with your chosen at this time. And he drops down from the vines, looking upward to ensure that his companions are doing just as well, and awaits their arrival before he says anything further.
They make their way to the bottom easily enough as well.
Okay. Would you like me to pause for a map switch?
So I've moved. There we go. Yes. I have you guys on the west side of this vertically longer map.
Yes, I have to find it. Roll20 has hidden it from me again.
I did notice that when I was watching the stream of last time that the dynamic lighting for your token, for at least your screen, was different. And I think that might be because, well, I'll have to figure that out here too. But I'm hoping that leaves. What I'll probably do is I'll create another account and just test out what other people are seeing, as I know that with this whole new introduction to new dynamic lighting, I've had issues that weren't there before. So I think your character token sees everything they should see. I am currently activating it to see your site, so let's hope it stays that way.
Yep, we have a map now, and you're not alone on the dynamic lighting. We've had that problem in other games. It's a little fussy sometimes. But getting on with the adventure, once they're at the bottom, Kavan asks Kremak, you do not seem particularly fond of your leaders, and when I mentioned the fruit to you earlier, you asked me to meet you separately from them to discuss that. Was there something you wished to tell me?
Kremak looks to you and is about to speak when suddenly the skeletons in this room, who seem to have just been gardening, digging pits as well as plant roots up, suddenly motion to attack. As they do, Kremak quickly says, "Cover your faces. Do not let them look at you." Well, do you do so?
Kavan immediately pulls his hood further down, and at greater risk, he closes his eyes, and he tells the others, if you've any means of covering your faces, do so. If you do not, then close your eyes and hope for the best.
And as they do, Sheldon takes a hood, puts it over his head, and Dorian quickly fumbles around for a cloth, and he throws a rag, I believe, at Meepo's way. He says, "Hey, quick, put this on." And Meepo says, "Okay." And as you do, you are all in hoods now as you make your way into this this area. And Kremak says, "They are told to attack any non-goblins. Quick, let's move through this area before they become wary of our presence."
Kavan holds up a hand and he says, Kremak, what I should like you to do is climb back up go to your chieftain and tell him that we have begun to dismantle the gardener's defenses, his protectors, and stay there among your kind. Help them to defend your tribe and the goblins and the kobolds before them.
Kremak listens to you and says,
This is a valiant intent, but you will need me to get through the rest of this area. We can talk more here in the area to the east. There, I can show you what the outcast has been doing.
Oh, very well. Kavan agrees reluctantly. He seems very much to want Kremock to go back up, but given that his knowledge of the skeletons may well have just saved their lives, he goes along with the goblin's instructions.
As you move your way through this area, you notice that some of the bushes in this area seem to move and almost ambulate around sometimes. They will seemingly unhook their roots from the ground and begin splaying them across the ground as if they were webbing their way across mounds of dirt, shifting their location ever so slightly. As Kremak leads you and the group to the northeast door, he tells you to hide along the east side and says,
Quickly, let's make our way in.
Kavan asks Kremock in a low voice as he moves toward the eastern wall, what's beyond this place?
And Kremak says,
The laboratories.
Laboratories. And this is a place safe to speak.
And as he opens the door, you are greeted with the sight of a giant indoor lab. Inside, you can hear all sorts of manners of busy work being done, from things being dropped into barrels and goblins making and creating furniture, to others fashioning crude instruments from bits of rope and straw. You see some of the doors are agape, and inside there seems to be a bit of activity going on. When Kremak walks in, he says,
This is where Belak wishes us to make for him his experiment. I must show you something.
And he makes his way to this door in the middle, south. And as he comes upon this door, he looks at it and seemingly seemingly presses upon it as if to listen if there is anything beyond the door. You sense this trepidation as he does not take lightly what he hears. When he steps through, he sees that indeed there has been what he thought there was. He says,
It seems it has died.
And he points to a rat that has been operated on by two of the goblins here. Two of the goblins seem to have been holding these scissors as well as knives that they have just placed onto a kind of dish or tray of some sort. And Kremak says,
These experiments are what Belak wishes for us and eventually the surface. He came here not just to explore the tree, but to grow it. Now do you see why I do not wish the same?
And Kavan puts a hand to his chest as he sees the sight before him. It's just a light touch, but beneath his armor, it's where he hides his symbol to Lady Selune. And as he lowers his hand, he asks Kremak, Belak, that's the name of this gardener we've heard of?
Yes, that is the name of the outcast.
And you say that the butchery done to this creature, he wishes to do this to those on the surface.
Kremak moves over to the rat and picks out a piece of it. And as he turns around, he holds in his hands, raised, seems to be a green fruit. But as it kind of twitches in his hand, as he kind of moves it around, you see it is no fruit at all. It is some kind of green heart or piece of bark that seems to have been placed inside of this rat and then removed. It makes more twitches as he holds it, and he says,
Yes, this is what he wishes upon all of us and your kind.
Kavan doesn't seem, I'm sure, to recognize what exactly this is, even though he is a man of nature, but he is nevertheless somewhat mortified by it, and he asks the goblin, why do your people serve him, even though you were in such greater numbers, knowing that one day he'll wish to do this sort of terrible thing to your own?
He replies simply with,
He wants this, so he spelled it out to Dern. Dern does not wish but to make himself the ruler of us goblins. I am like Grenell, simply appeasing someone who would rather remove us than remove himself as leader. Belek is no fool. He has made Dern agree to this. And as long as he is alive, we will become Belak's pawn.
Kavan uh, pauses for a moment. Something seems to strike him suddenly. As he's looking at the piece of bark, he asks, "Did this come from the great tree that Belak tends to?"
Kremak does not seem to know. So he says,
I do not know. I am not sure.
and as he steps to the back of the room, he picks up it looks like vial of greenish fluid. And when he takes it, he tells the other goblins that it is okay. When he steps out of the room, closes it behind him, he hands out a green vial to you for you to hold in your hands.
And Kavan accepts it and holds it up to his eye for a moment to get a close look at it. And he, assuming it's corked, he does remove the cork, if only to get the briefest of smells of it, just to try and get some idea of what it might be.
It has this bitter aroma to it, something that is almost very earthy. If you've ever smelled like a bay leaf, Imagine that, but maybe less intense.
Mm.
It is very much a very potent mixture. And Primac says, "This, this is what he asks us to inject to fill the bodies of these animals. One day, soon, he will ask us to go on that table and inject it into ourselves."
And slowly, Kavan asks, has he ever asked you to inject it into the fruit before you bring it to the surface?
Um, he looks at you and gives a shrug. He says, "Not that I know of."
Hmm. Kavan seems almost relieved by that much, and he uh, pushes the cork back into the vial, and assuming Cremak doesn't stop him, he tucks it away safely in one of the loops of his belt for any later use. And he tells Cremak, at this point, I believe that you may wish to consider urging your leader toward peace with the kobolds. I do not know that we can slay this gardener if he is powerful enough to frighten even Dern. And, well, peace may well be the way forward for both of you if you're forced to fight him. Uh, I can offer you no guarantees that we will return alive.
You're saying this to Cremak.
Correct.
Cremak also goes through a couple different changes in his eyes. His squat nose points downward as he thinks for a moment. His ears twitch a little bit, and it seems like he's come up with some kind of solution. And he replies, "Everything you say is true. That is why I believe we must remove Dern, either by force or by exile."
Perhaps it would do well for not only your people, but for the kobolds as well, if you were to exile Dern rather than kill him. This would show your people and the kobolds that there can be a way forward other than bloodshed.
Cremak thinks on this and comes up with nothing. He is still thinking it over. And as he finishes thinking, he says, "This could be true, but there is no way I can exile him. It would need to come to a vote, and then, well, Grenell would become our leader. And I do not know if she wishes the same. Perhaps she wishes Dern gone and Beleg gone simply so that she may tend to the grove herself."
It may be so, Kavan says, but I do not know her. However, she seemed much more willing to speak with us than Dern, and on not as loud terms, shall I say?
Krimpmak nods. And for a while, I think Sheldon speaks up and says, If it's true that this grove poisons the very users, we may have to burn it down. And that may mean this Grenell. Well, I must avoid angering her as well. We're in quite a tough situation.
Kavan turns toward Kremak and explains to him what it is, as my friend has said, that if this tree is so vile as we've seen here, if all of these terrible things may trace back to that tree, we may indeed have to not only slay the gardener, but burn the tree he tends to. And if that were to happen, perhaps it would anger the elder chieftain. But on the other hand, she would have no power to claim. If she does not rule you justly, well, then you may simply exile her as well.
As you've come to this conclusion, I believe Kremak believes that he knows the way forward, and he says, "You seem like you care, at least about our well-being as much as I do. Do what you must. Confront the evil below. And should anything go wrong, I will begin my preparations as well. Come to me, find me, and perhaps we may barter for a better peace between all of us down here in the dark."
I should thank you for that, Kremak, and while I'm at it, before we leave, the kobold who journeys with us, he's in search of a white dragon, a young one, not nearly so large as an adult. Might you have seen anything of the like?
He speaks to you and he says, "No. Finding a dragon, even capturing one, not even our hobgoblins could accomplish. But maybe one of the bugbears will know. But I can't imagine the bugbears wishing to help you if you have not helped us.
And
maybe that is something also I will help you with."
bugbears, Kavan says rather grimly, as the numbers seem to be adding up as to peoples who have troubles with other peoples down here. He nods once and simply states, "We'll leave that for another time then. Perhaps our kobold friend could stay in safety here while we go to this grove, if you would show us the most direct way, and learn what we can of this gardener and his tree."
He says to Meepo to take this room here as he walks to it, and he leads you the way there. Kremak says, "I have much to think on. Your friend may stay here, and I will guide you as far as I can. But if you encounter others like me, and they are not convinced that you can help us, I'm afraid they may try to fight you. And if that happens, I ask that you only kill them swiftly, with no pain."
Well, I am not a man of cruelty, unlike most of my kind, though I know you would find it hard to believe, and I have not known my companions to be so either. But at the same time, I should not wish one of them to perhaps slip by and run back to your chieftains. You might wish to simply show us the way and then not follow us yourself.
Kremak says, "I thank you for my safety, but I must do what is asked. I must guide you there safely, whether or not Durin wishes for it."
Well, Kremak, the laboratories are rather busy, it seems like. I do not think Durin would notice if you were with us or not, so as one who seems very reasonable, and a reasonable man is a good thing for the future of a peaceful tribe. I should like it if you survived. Why don't you simply blend in here after showing us where to go, and when we return, we will simply say that you did indeed guide us to where we needed to go. It is not a lie, it is merely a creative way of describing what you've done.
And at that, I say we can call it. And next week, have you roll a persuasion check. Kremak is a goblin of duty, if not to his ideals, if not to his tribe, but to at least his ideals. And if that will keep him on the right track, well, we'll see.
And with my -1 to persuasion, I'm not holding my breath.
Sure.
All right. Well, this has been a great session, fun as always.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, great storytelling. I had a wonderful time. And everybody out there, this has been GM Tangy. And if you are interested in having some fun with GM Tangy's adventures, well, he's a great storyteller, as you can see. And you can find all of his information on the screen layout, or if you don't catch it there, it's also in the video info. Just shoot him a DM on Discord, and he is a great guy. He'll be more than happy to talk to you. And anything you'd like to say, Tangy, before we go?
I'd just like to thank you, Legacy Arc Games, for playing with me, for in creating this world, right, in a vision that I think is maybe better, or at least more fuller, right, than the official modules would have done. So to that I thank you. To your great role play, it's always been a blast. To that I also thank you. And to any watchers out there, this is my take on the Sunless Citadel. So if it differs, if it changes from what you're used to or from what lump the blame all on me. This is just this is how I feel that this module should be run. With a little bit more role play, a little bit more stakes as well.
Oh, and that reminds me, during the break earlier, I was telling the viewers that as we do more of the Yawning portal, that you had mentioned to me you were adding to it and sort of filling in the gaps, making it have a little more fulfilling conclusion, if nothing else.
Sure, exactly.
So that might be something we look forward to as well. Getting to see a bit of your homebrew work. And
yes, and everything I try to keep within the bounds of the Forgotten Realms. So this is simply taking what's already there, a very fantastic set of mechanics and maps laid out and presented to the players in a professional way, and doing something a little bit more with it, right? Telling a richer story, a story that it's going to matter, your decisions, and who's there at the end with you. So
well, all right, that's something for us to look forward to. And well, you guys, we will be with GM Tangy next week, Tuesday, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern. And that's if I can't talk him into doing a second session sooner again. But until then, thank you very much for watching. This has been JT with Legacy Arc Games, and we're going to continue with our tabletop series throughout the week, supporting disabled and chronically ill gamers. So I'd like to thank you for watching. I hope some of you out there enjoy and benefit from the charitable donations of time that people like GM Tangy are giving us. And I hope you enjoy the streamathon throughout this week and probably next week with all the people lining up. So, everyone out there, stay safe, have a good night, and I will talk to you later. Have a good one.